All right, let's get started. Who here has planted some bad karmic seeds in their lives? All right, I'm not going to count this up, but I know based on the research that we did a couple of weeks ago, we have 2,469 years of karmic seed planting in our past. And that's roughly about the same amount of time that Buddhism has been around. So that's a little fun fact. In May of 2025, hopefully I don't know if it's working or not, whatever. May of 2025, I had one of the worst anxiety attacks I've ever had in my life that brought me closer to ending my life than ever before. And the worst part about it was I blamed myself. I said that I should have seen it coming. And if you've never been in crisis like that before, blaming yourself does not help. But that's what I was doing. And in some ways, I had control over the things that brought me to that point. But what I wasn't aware of or awake to at the time was that I did have control of how I reacted. And that is where this story begins. This is something that I've been doing for a really long time, but it's best exemplified by a TikTok trend, believe it or not, from the fall of 2023. So, of course, now it's working. For those of you that don't know, I'm sure you all know by this point, I am a teacher. That is a picture of my classroom and a couple of my coworkers. And in the fall of 2023, there was a TikTok trend where teachers were getting their phrases printed on t-shirts. It's the thing that we say a million times a day because that's what teachers do. And I chose a phrase that I didn't necessarily say all the time in class, but I said often enough to everything in my life. And the phrase that I chose is, "That's a future me problem." Yeah, oh yeah, exactly right. So, I always said it with a smirk. This was like my little tongue-in-cheek, like, yeah, whatever, I'm just gonna do, and then not really care or be concerned about the outcome of the choices that I'm making. Whatever it is, that's a future me problem. So if this was a work issue, that parent is an asshole. My boss is just clueless. I'm a better teacher than the guy down the hallway. In my relationships with both friends, family, and romantic, that was all somebody else's problem, right? Whatever the issue was, that's a future me problem. Self-care, money, budgeting, the whole 9 yards, I was just putting it off to a future version of myself that was going to be better equipped, or interested at least, to handle it. So I spent a lot of time afraid of everything that came up. I viewed every change or a challenge as a death that was going to take me out of my, albeit unhappy, status quo, but the one that was familiar. I didn't realize that I did have some control over the seeds that I was planting at this time. It weakened my relationships with friends and with family. It lost me the most important romantic relationship of my life. And it turned my job into like stress, burnout, hell. And this was a familiar path. I had worn this path well thin, where some sort of crisis would come up. I had been in talk therapy for years at this point, and which was helpful, but it was often slow moving. I would try some sort of natural remedies. I spent an entire summer in true millennial fashion, microdosing psilocybin, convincing myself that it was working. It was not. I would try meditating. I'd stick with it for a couple days, a week if I'm lucky, and then give up on that too. And then the cycle would repeat. And back to 2025, I was right here on my journey where I'm like, I don't know, I'll try meditating again. And I had been in the orbit of 3 Joules for a few years at this point, and I liked the idea of having somebody live on Zoom that was going to hold me accountable. And at the bare minimum, maybe somebody's going to do the pen thing, and it's something that... And this is just going to keep going if I let it. Somebody's going to do the pen thing, and it'll be something witty that I can bring up in social situations. And the first class that I took was some woo-woo sounding nonsense called Total Purity with Supriya. And I actually went back on Jewel Vision to find this screenshot a couple days ago, so that was cool. And Sabria brought up the fact that sometimes you can hear something for 100 times, but it might not click until the 101st time. And then continued to talk about these key core Buddhist principles of karma and emptiness. Then we meditated. You're probably expecting me to say, this was the 101st time and everything clicked. It didn't. It's got nothing to do with Sabria. It's got everything to do with the seeds that I was planting. But I was at least interested enough in booking goals with Kat the next day. And then I booked a class with Santi and then one with Sachi and so on and so forth. And I stuck with it and realized that I did have some influence over these seeds that I was planting. And again, this was like a total new awareness, right? Karma and emptiness, two sides of the same coin. Once I started to understand that a little bit more, I started to realize what my garden of seeds looked like. So I started to spend some time digging up the dead growth, starting to try to give myself some grace when a bad seed would come to fruition, and rejoicing when a good seed was planted. And this really started to change things for me when I started to think about what karma could do. All right? So at the end of every meditation, you dedicate your practice to either somebody who would really benefit from the benefits that you just got or to all beings. And this brings me to my call to action for everybody in here. You guys already know this, but if you're watching at home, that you need to start meditating. You do not need to keep putting things off for future you because it's not going to come. You do have some control over what's happening in your life because, as Hector likes to remind us all very often, you're going to be dead soon. So, if you're going to be dead soon, future me is not going to come and help you out. You need to help yourself. So whether that means starting a meditation practice, whatever that means for you, I think meditation is the way to go. But living a life where I felt like I was lacking all of this wisdom and presence and love is no longer a future me problem. Thank you.